All right, this is one of my absolute favorite resources for pilots that I want you to know about, and it's totally free. It's called the Airfield Guide, and if you've ever been wondering where we're gonna fly this weekend, or where should we go on our next trip, or where can I fly to some cool airstrip that has a restaurant on it that's in the backcountry or something, look no farther than this resource. I'm gonna walk you through it. I did a video about it a few years ago, but they've since completely updated the platform, added some new features. It just looks a lot prettier too, and it's really, really cool. So it's managed by the RAF, which is the Recreational Aviation Foundation. They're a nonprofit. I'm a huge fan of this organization. Like, it's primarily through volunteerism, which is cool. But they really exist to promote, maintain, and advocate for recreational aviation, flying into backcountry airstrips. So if you've ever been to Trigger Gap or heard me talk about Trigger Gap here on the channel, or Richland Creek, or different places like that in the backcountry of Arkansas or Idaho, or other really beautiful places to fly, the RAF has a lot to do with promoting and maintaining those airstrips. So they've put together this resource to help understand what cool recreational airstrips are out there and how can we easily find where to fly this weekend. So let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen over here on my computer, and I want to kind of give you a walk through the new platform. So to access Airfield Guide, you go to airfield.guide, which might be new to some of you. It's not like .com, it's .guide. That is the .com. So just go to airfield.guide in your browser. You'll end up in the right place. You'll have to create a free account, but it doesn't cost anything, and you'll land on this page. Once you're here, there's a lot of really cool features, and I think they just launched, they're kind of out of beta mode of this new platform, and they're going to be adding a lot of features, so it might not look exactly like this if you're watching this in the future, but just want to kind of run through some of the high points here. These white dots with the numbers just indicate how many more airstrips there are kind of in that region if you zoom in. But starting off here, just in terms of like, well, where do you start? Where do you want to look? Obviously, you can zoom into wherever you're going on a trip to look for stuff, but if you just kind of want some ideas, there are some filters up here that have different areas you can search for. So you can, do it by state or by region or whatnot. So we could do like just Arkansas, for example, and zoom in, it'll show you the Arkansas strips. You can also filter this by amenities. And so like if you really want to look at, okay, what are airstrips that have restaurants on it? And here are the ones in Arkansas that we can eat at. And you could zoom back out if you want to see all over the country or whatnot. And then let's take that filter off just to see more strips here. And then they also have minimum runway length. So if you say, hey, I'm really not comfortable going anything shorter than 3,000 feet, you can just toggle that and it's going to filter it accordingly. So really easy to use and kind of helps you zoom in on what strips might be applicable for your abilities or your mission or your geography, that sort of thing. But if we remove those filters and let's just look at all of them here, and let's zoom back into Arkansas. I love Arkansas and I go there kind of regularly, so I'm familiar with the area. Let's pick an airstrip here. This is one of my favorites, called Richland Creek. So if you click on it, and I also love that as you hover over it, it's going to tell you like the runway length and whatnot. So even if you don't filter it, like you don't have to click on every single airport to find out the basic information about it. If you're wanting to just kind of scan and stuff, like Ponca, which I'll cover here in a minute. This one's only about 1,200 feet long, so it could save you the clicks in if you're like, that's not long enough. Or on the other hand, if you're like, ooh, that's a really short strip, let me look at that. That sounds cool. This is an easy way to kind of see that. But if we click into Richland Creek, there's a lot of cool features about this. Here on the left, there's a lot of good pertinent information that they'll have unique to the airstrips, your basic elevation and whatnot. But they also have like the contact info, which for private strips, like if we go back actually here and you look at Arkansas, it's kind of color coded here, and you see in the bottom right corner here, public or permissive versus conditional. Conditional would just mean you're probably going to need someone's approval before you can land there or whatnot. But that's really helpful too, to be able to see that. And if it's a conditional strip, then on that airport information page, it'll tell you, okay, here is the person's contact information to reach out to. Which is kind of neat. There is a button here you can sign up for notices. This is why it's helpful to have an account. Well, you have to have an account to access it, but you might be wondering, like, well, why do I have to have a login to access here? This is one of the reasons why, and why it can be helpful, is because you can get push notifications anytime something gets updated about this airstrip. Maybe it's closed due to wildfires or something, or maybe they added new amenities. You'll find out about that, which is pretty cool. So you can subscribe to notices for an airstrip if you're interested in that. And I'll come back to add to route here in just a minute. But yeah, you have the contact info, you have some notes that could be pertinent. Like I said, they just launched the new version of this platform, so I haven't seen very many comments yet on different airstrips, but I imagine the more people that are going to use this, it's going to become really helpful to see kind of the latest comments or what's the chatter about what's going on, or any updates, whatever. You know what comments are. Comments will be helpful. And then there's photos and videos, but this is also linked on another page here. This is a really cool view on amenities. So like Richland Creek in this instance has several different things. So right now it's showing all of these things, but if you just wanted to say, you could clear that off and say, yeah, where are the tie downs? Like when I get there, where am I going to park? And it color codes it here. And if you hover over it, sometimes it'll have additional information here. So this one says, hey, make sure to bring your own ropes and anchors because this is a good tie down spot, but we don't actually have tie downs. So you don't always have those types of comments, but when they're there, they're definitely useful. So I think that's helpful. Like whenever I'm going to a new place, I'm always wondering like where you're going to park, or you don't want to just like act like the new guy or be obviously lost. So I like knowing where you're going to go and looking at tie downs and whatnot. This one has a swimming creek here, and so that's kind of unique. But one other really cool, interesting thing here is also cell service. So like Richland Creek, you get there, you have no cell service. But they've put up here in the right corner of the map in yellow here that this is the spot on the road that they've identified as like having some cell signal. And you can see the note that they put here that AT&T seems to be the most stable provider or whatnot. So that can be really helpful just to know ahead of time. And then you can read the notes on these different things to kind of get a lay of the land of the airstrip before you ever go. And then when you click on runways, it gives you kind of similar but different information, just kind of like highlighting stuff geographically. And what I mean by that is this one, for example, has a really good call out here of some noise abatement procedures, that there's a full-time resident that lives right down here. And so like, let's make sure to give them space. So that's super helpful to know, and super helpful to see that represented on the map. So you're not guessing, like you can actually see it on the map. And then if you scroll down, they have videos or photos of different people that have gone in. So it makes it really easy to click on that, maybe watch what the approach is like and whatnot. If you've gone into any of these strips and you've filmed it, you can, I think the best way to like let them know is to leave a comment. When you click leave a comment, it's gonna ask you what type of airplane you were in, what runway you were landing on, and then you can also rate the level of difficulty and then leave a comment. And then if you took some photos or video of your trip, then you can link to your YouTube video or Vimeo or whatnot. It won't be posted immediately. It goes over to the RAF team and they review it to make sure there's no spam on there and whatnot. But that's how you can get things submitted, and you'll see that pop up there. So even just this alone, I think is so helpful. But there's a couple other cool features I want to cover here. So a feature I really love is the ability to export some of this stuff into Google Earth. So let me show you a real example. So there's a strip. We were looking at Richland Creek here. There's another strip nearby called Ponca International. It's only about 1,200 feet long, but it sits up on a plateau. It's a really beautiful strip, and I went in and out of there in the Kodiak a little while ago on a training flight. I'll roll some footage here, and it was really breathtaking. But this is a strip that if you're going into, this could be helpful to look at in Google Earth and just kind of see the 3D view, so that way you're not taken by surprise to know like, oh wow, there's actually some topography here. I'm not going to be caught off guard by the approach. I think this could be even more handy in the mountains, but I think you'll get the effect here. So if you go into the Airfield guide listing, up here on the export function, there's a couple things you can do, but if you click on Google Earth, it's going to download a file that you open up in Google Earth, and Google Earth has a desktop version. So here's what it looks like. So it's basically downloading your kind of runways, like your runways and amenities here. So you have your amenities. The only amenity here is lodging. Whereas like Richland Creek, you notice there were several different little bubbles around for the different things. This one, there's not as many. But it's going to download the runway and those amenities into Google Earth. And this is what it's going to look like. So it doesn't look all that crazy yet. But it's really helpful because you can obviously like, you can zoom in and out, change the angle and whatnot. But on this one, you kind of get a feel for like how much terrain there actually is. And so as we're approaching Ponca, we'd be a little higher than this, right? But you can tell that there are, some valleys and ravines and whatnot. So okay, when we're on final here, landing to the west, that's west, we know we're either going to fly right over that hill or maybe even do kind of a turn. You probably wouldn't have to do like a dogleg final, but you just kind of can expect that there's going to be some terrain to deal with. And then the beginning part of the runway here is actually a lot more slope than it even looks like here. It's going to appear like this. And then once we take off, let's turn it all the way around. We know we're kind of taking off this way, really off of a cliff. Cliff is an overstatement, but you're going to understand. You're going to kind of know that ahead of time, and you're not going to be caught off guard. And even just in Google Earth, because it's hard to see, all the topography here. You can even tell that how much this is sloped down, and in real life it was sloped down quite a bit, and then you go right off the edge there. So I think just being able to brief this is really helpful, especially in a mountainous environment, to know okay, what are my go around options? What is it going to look like? Where does the river go? What are my turns around this hill of the mountain if it's kind of a blind turn or whatnot? It can be so helpful. So I love that it has that export feature, makes it super simple. Another cool feature they have in the Airfield guide is the ability to create routes. So here we are still in Arkansas. We're down in Richland Creek here, then we were looking at Ponca. Let's say that we're planning a trip out to Gaston's, which you haven't been there. It's absolutely amazing. It's about a 3,000 or a little longer than 3,000 foot airstrip. Really well manicured. They have tons of cabins right on the White River. It's the White River. Yes, it's the White River. Gaston's White River Resort. It's the White River. And then you can go guided trout fishing right there. They have a cool restaurant. They'll cook up the fish that you caught. It's awesome. Definitely go there. So let's say that we're planning a trip there. You can start planning a route here in Airfield Guide. And you can hover over Gaston's and say, let's add it to a route. So that little squiggly mark was a route. And let's create a new route. Let's say upcoming, I don't know if I can type, upcoming trip. Let's just create that or whatever. And so we created it, and then we'll just click it to add it. Now that is in the route. And then let's say we're going to go from there down to Richland Creek. We can add it to the route. Click on upcoming trip. Now it's added. And then let's also go to Ponca or whatever. So we're going to go out there, and then the morning after we after we fish in the morning, then we're going to go do this little route or whatever. You can plan this ahead of time. So this is what we're going to do in the afternoon. So I've got those 3 airports in the route. So you can go to routes, click on upcoming trip, and it's going to show that. Shows the elevation change, so shows your runway length, and then also shows your leg length, the length of each leg, and then your total distance. And then if you want to change the order of it or whatnot, you could obviously do that. So this could be helpful, especially if you're wanting to like one of my favorite things to do is just go to an area and just hit a bunch of airstrips, maybe 5 or 6 in an afternoon, and just explore. This can be an easy way to do that. And once you have the route down, then you can actually export it into ForeFlight. I haven't, and this is probably user error, I've been running into issues just clicking ForeFlight and trying to import it. I can't find a way to do that in the desktop version. On your phone, I think you can do it. But another way you can do it is just click send to email. And then once you get in your email, let me open that up. You'll get an email that looks like this. So here's your route, upcoming trip. And wow, I'm on 20% battery, living on the edge, baby. Hope we make it. And I think there's a couple ways you can do this. The open via ForeFlight, for some reason, wasn't working for me earlier. Again, is probably user error on my part. But if you click on the file, the KML attachment, you can then just click on open and then select ForeFlight, and that'll take you over to ForeFlight. Click on custom content, custom map layers, and that will import it for you. So where does that show up? Well, you can go up in the top left in your layers here, and it's going to add that at the very bottom. I'm not sure how to rename this, but you can tell that it says upcoming trip there, and then with a bunch of extensions at the end. But if you click on that, it's going to import that. So remember, we did Gaston's to Richland Creek to Ponca. So it's really helpful just to be able to see that visually represented here. The other cool thing you can do here is instead of just exporting your upcoming trip or whatnot, you can go back to the map and either filter to just a certain area, or in this case you can do all, and then you notice those are all 397 listings, and they're adding to it actively are in here, and you can export all of those. And so if you click that, it's going to email you a file, and then you can upload it into ForeFlight the same way I just showed you. And then go down here, and you'll notice I already have it loaded, so collections. So once you do that, there's gonna be a lot. It's gonna pop up here. But this is really, really cool because I know it looks overwhelming when we're looking at the whole United States. But why this is neat is that, as you're flying just en route, maybe on your trip or not on your trip, you can look down and be like, hey, are we gonna go over any RAF strips? Maybe we can see it from the air. Maybe we can just fly over it as we're going. So I think it's kind of a helpful tool to have loaded in there. So if you know, hey, we're going to be flying over Arkansas, or we're going to be flying over this part of Texas, and oh look, there's a few RAF strips there. It's an easy way to toggle that. And then if you want to turn it off, you just come into the map layers and turn it off. And so it makes it really easy. And so one of my other absolute favorite strips here in the RAF, the Airfield Guide database, is Cedar Mills. It's 3 Tango 0. It's just north of me here. I live kind of in the Dallas area, and it's just north here. And I just submitted this, so it's not there yet, but if you go to the Airfield Guide by the time this video is live, you might see it in the comments. I submitted my own video that I did on Cedar Mills because it's so fun. Like, you can just even tell based on this listing, like, you fly in right over the water and land, like the runway starts literally right here. And so you land right over the water, take off over the water, and then there is a marina restaurant right here. So you can kind of walk through this little pretty trail here to get to the restaurant and eat. And it's one of my absolute favorite places to go. And so I did a video just showcasing that airstrip because it's so much fun, and it's on the screen right now, and I hope to see you there.